Did you know that tonality is 10 times more important than the words you use if you want to close more deals? Make sure you watch what I'm about to show you right here, because there's 5 types of tonalities that you have to master if you want to make a lot more sales than you are now, if you want to become a top 1% salesperson for what you sell. The first type of tonality, this is called a curious tone. Now, why do I say that you need to master a curious tone? Because prospects' brains recognizes patterns, right? And what is a pattern that they might recognize from a salesperson, let's say, is cold calls them, or some type of telemarketer? Something like this, monotone voice. Hey, is this John? Hey, John, it's Jeremy Miller with XYZ Company. Hey, the reason why I'm calling you is, and that monotone tonality is a pattern they recognize. Oh, salesperson, telemarketer, guard goes up. Does that make sense? Okay. If I change my tone into a curious tone, that implies that I'm genuinely curious about what they're doing, or I'm genuinely curious about a question I'm asking. So let's give you another example. Let's say that I'm at the beginning of a conversation, and let's say if I sold for a marketing agency, okay? So it looks like you booked on the calendar about, I guess, maybe getting higher qualified leads to really grow the business, right? That's a curious tone. It sounds like I'm genuinely curious. Or I might say, so what were you hoping could, I guess, possibly happen by working with us? See, that's a curious tone. Implies that you're curious, okay? That's the number one. Number two, this is called the confused tone. Now, why do I say a confused tone? I don't mean confused tone that you're confused. Like, I don't know how the thing works. Like, I don't know how the product works. Or if they ask a question, you're confused. Like, I'm not really sure about the answer. A confused tone can be used in different contexts. So let's say if you want them to emotionally open up to you more, and they say the XYZ problem is causing them a lot of stress. Oh, XYZ problem, it's just causes so much stress in our department. Hold on, how do you mean by stress? Or stress? See, my facial expression and my tone implies I'm not understanding. I'm confused what you mean by stress. Now, what does the prospect do? Subconsciously, their brain immediately says, oh, he didn't understand what I meant by stress. I need to explain that better. I need to expand on that. And suddenly they're like, oh gosh. And they start just emotionally opening up. Oh gosh, you have no idea the stress. And they start telling you what they mean by stress, okay? That is one way that confused tone does that in that context. But if I didn't use a confused tone, I'm like, oh, what did you mean by stress? Well, it just sometimes gets stressful. Okay, you're not going to get the same thing because you got to get them to like expand on it. And a curious tone in that context wouldn't do that, but a confused tone would. Oh, how do you mean by stress? Okay, it sounds a little bit concerned too. Opens them up emotionally. Okay. Number 3, the third type of tone you have to master is a challenging tone. Okay. Now, not challenging, you're not going to use a challenging tone in the first couple minutes of a conversation. But let's say you're 3/4 of the way in, you've built a big gap from where they are to where they want to be. They feel urgency, they feel pain, they have a fear of future pain, okay? And you've helped them see what the future will look like, future pacing. Once that pain is gone, I want to rip that away with the challenging tone. I might say, so what happens if you don't do anything about this and this actually gets worse? See, I'm challenging them. But if I did that too early in the conversation, they would get defensive. Now I have trust and credibility by this point, and I can challenge them. Or I can even use a softer tone, but a challenging tone. What if this doesn't change? Okay, so I'm challenging them, but I'm using a softer tone to do that. Okay, challenging tone. Okay, there's a lot more to that for sure. The fourth type of tonality you have to master, this is one of the most important things, is the concern tone. Okay, the tone that shows empathy. Now, why do I say you need to have a tone that shows empathy? You're not going to ask every question with a concerned tone. That would be awkward, okay? But let's say if you sold life insurance, for example, and the person, and I might ask a question like, so has something recently happened, or what's caused you to feel like you might need more coverage? Well, yes, we've had a death in the family. Oh, what actually happened? Yeah, my grandma died. Oh, wow, you seem so young. What actually happened to your mom? Well, my mom did. And did she, like, what type of insurance did she leave with your dad? Okay, I'm concerned. It's a concerned tone, okay? Or I might move in if, let's say, they're not moving forward, they're not opening up, and I might say, can I ask you something, John? Sure, go ahead. And this is just between you and I, off the record. What's really holding you back? See that soft, concern tone. It's a tone that shows empathy. And when you show empathy in those type of contexts, there's a lot more. That builds massive trust because they feel like you genuinely care for them. If you don't show empathy in some of those contexts, if you just use like a monotone tone or a curious tone, they don't feel like you care about them. They just feel like you're trying to sell them. And remember, if you've heard me say this, is selling something you do to people or is selling something you do for people? It's for people, because if we don't master selling, they don't buy from us and their problems don't get solved. And they don't get where they want, all because we haven't mastered sales yet. But I know you're here. You want to watch me so you can master sales. You're committed to mastery. Hey guys, Jeremy Miner here. Look, a lot of you leave comments wanting me to help you sell more. So the easiest way to get a hold of me, the quickest way, is to text me. So text me right now. It's 480-637-2944. So 480-637-2944. Listen, I started this company to help you learn how to close more deals, but do it the right way. Text me right now. Let's get back to the training video. And then the fifth type of tone that you have to really master is called a playful tone, okay? Now, when I say playful tone, we don't use a playful tone to be like the class clown or to crack jokes. That's not what I'm talking about. A playful tone is used strategically throughout the conversation when certain contexts come up, and that's to help the prospect let their guard down. So let's say you let's say you have a call, let's say you call a prospect or whatever, and within like 30 seconds, they actually ask you how you're doing. They're like, hey, well, how are you doing? Now, in what would most salespeople say? Oh, I'm doing really good, or I'm just working hard, which that doesn't really hurt you, but it doesn't really help you, okay? So if the prospect said, well, hey, how's your day going? Oh, just trying to stay out of trouble over here. What about you? Are you getting any trouble? Oh, no, I'm good. See, and now they start to laugh a little bit. Guard comes down. Now, why do they do that? Because scientifically, that releases what's called dopamine in their brain, which is actually causing them to let their guard down. It's like just a way to get their guard down. Relax the nervous system. You get the nervous system to relax, they become open. They're not guarded. Is it easier to sell when the prospect is not guarded compared to when the wall of resistance up? You obviously know the answer. Now, there are subcategories of each of these tones. So a curious tone, there's also a subcategory called, there's many, but I'll just list a few here, called a familiar tone. Okay, so let's say if you're a cold caller or you call outbound leads, instead of sounding like everybody else does, remember your prospects recognizes patterns in your vocal cords from other salespeople that sound monotone or way too excited or too timid and somebody that's nervous. Okay, you want to sound like the expert, calm, collective, assertive. You're the expert who can solve their problems, but you're not overbearing. Okay, now familiar tone. Instead of saying on a cold call, is this John? Hey, John, it's Jeremy Miller with XYZ Company. Hey, the reason why I'm calling you was, click, I want them to feel like my voice knows them, like I'm familiar with them. So immediately, I'm not going to say, is this John? I'm going to say, John, yeah, hey, it's Jeremy. Jeremy Miller with XYZ Company. You responded to the ad. You asked us to call you back about looking at the 2026 blue Audi, right? Let's say if it was an outbound lead. I just made that up, okay? See what I'm doing there? I'm speaking into the future. But that sounds familiar. Yeah, it's Jeremy, Jeremy Miner. You asked us to call you back. My voice sounds familiar, but it's how I cadence it. It's how I pace that out. Yeah, it's Jeremy Miner with XYZ Company. You asked us to call you back. You saw the ad this morning on Facebook about looking at like different properties for sale in XYZ area. If I sold real estate, if I ran an ad. See, it doesn't matter what the industry is. It's Jeremy Miner. See, that's that familiar tone. Like if you ever got a call from somebody and like, hey, it's Amy Smith. How are you? What do? Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you? And then the whole time your brain is thinking what? Who's Amy Smith? How do I know Amy Smith? She sounds familiar. And all that's doing is buying time because the tone interrupted your pattern, because it's a familiar tone that you feel like, hey, this person knows me. You're not going to be rude to that in the beginning. Does that make sense? Okay. So there's many different tones of these. I'll just show you a few others here. Let's say a challenging tone. There's a subcategory, which is a skeptical tone. Now, you don't want to be skeptical where you sound like you're judging them, but I might ask what's called an n.e.p.q consequence question. I'll be like, oh, so how long have they had you actually do that for? See, I'm skeptical, but that implies that something could be wrong. I'm seeding doubt that there might be a better way. Oh, so they're they're still making you do that manually? What's caused them not to actually automate that so you don't have to spend 4 hours a day doing that manually? See, I'm not being skeptical towards them. I mean skeptical towards what they're being forced to do. Let's say if I sold some type of SaaS that automated something that they had to do manually that took them hours a day. See, that's a skeptical tone. Now, you want to master tonality for your industry, and if you want to master what tones to use for what questions you ask, make sure you subscribe to this channel right now. Click the subscribe button. Just don't share with your competitors. You don't want them knowing what I'm going to show you here. And you can always text me with questions on this stuff, 480-637-2944, or whatever number we throw up here. Myself and a couple sales trainers, we actually answer questions about an hour a day over here in this conference room. See you soon.